to the WEA pod. My name is Verona Frankish and I'm the chair of Women in Estate Agency Board.
And my name is Kirsty Franks and I'm a member of the Women in Estate Agency Board. So you might be wondering why there are two of us on the pod this week. Well, before we introduce you to our guests, let me give you a little bit of a spoiler alert. They have their own podcast. They are well-known characters within the property industry, and they are definitely going to have a thing or two to say today. But do you know what? This is the WEA pod. This is our terms, and we're going to be shining the spotlight on them. So before we introduce you to them, I just also want to say a huge thank you to our partners at Digital Sparks for making the WEA pod happen. If you don't know who they are, head over to Instagram, check out what they're doing. They're creating some great content for the property industry.
So the smart-witted among you might already have worked out that today we are joined by Russell Jervis and Russell Quirk, otherwise known as the two Russells. And as Kirsty said, this is our territory. So today they're going to be questioned and interrogated by the two Franks. Welcome, the two Russells.
Thank you.
Hi, boys.
You've laid out your terms there.
That's not what the brief said.
No. So,
Was there a brief?
Oh, yeah.
So this is your podcast, not our podcast.
Yeah, just so we're crystal clear on where we stand here, yeah?
Well, look, good luck with it, and hope you catch up with two Russells. What are we on now, Russ? Episode
34.
34. And this
35
is-
coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean,
It's not always first to market that wins, is it?
Tips, any advice that we can give? Just feel free to.
if we need
Russell.
any, we'll let you know.
Thank
If we
you.
need any,
That's
we'll
very
come
kind,
and call
very
you.
This is first mansplaining there, Verona, don't you think?
Well, as I say, this is our territory, so let's get started. So I think it's fair to say that as two male, pale members of our industry, you guys could probably be considered to be part of the boys' club in estate agency for the last 20, 30 years. So can you tell us a little bit about your observations of how you believe the industry was for women 20 years ago?
So you're starting off with an easy one.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's good to know. How was it 20 years ago?
What's your
Well,
thoughts?
let me give you an example of 45 years ago, if I may. And this kind of characterises probably the industry up till now, maybe including now, which was my family being estate agents, my grandfather,
Yep.
father, and his two brothers, my uncles. They would have their morning meeting in my grandparents' house every day. And about 8 o'clock, they would be sitting around the table, and my grandmother would dutifully, big inverted commas, serve them breakfast. That, I think, characterises winning in estate agency. And, I mean, you be the judge of this. Do you think that's changed much? I mean, notwithstanding your position as individuals in the industry, which is stratospheric. I mean, have things changed? I guess that they have, because 20 years ago, I can't think of any senior women in estate agency, any CEOs. Now there are, thankfully. But I think it's fair to say you've got a long way to go.
Yeah, I'm reflecting back to, that would be 2005. I would be managing director of the estate agency division at Spicer Hart at that time. And we had some incredible female regional leaders. I'm thinking of Jackie White in particular, who was driving a region, 15 offices underneath her, a real mix of male and female managers within her team. Also, at that time, I'd just taken over a business in Wales. A lady called Jane Kinraid was running the business down there. So Marielle Rowe was just about to join us to run London. Most of the managers who were winning the top prizes as branch managers, Melanie Mills, Annette Thompson, were driving that business forward. There wasn't any in the senior leadership.
That was my next question.
There wasn't any in the senior leadership team. But in 2005, I was not working in a completely male-dominated estate agency business.
But what was
regional and below. The board at that time was very small, and it was a all male, 100% all male, family-run business with a very small board. I think it was 4, maybe 5 people at the time.
I guess my question is, were you aware of that discrepancy and that
Yeah.
inequality
Right,
at that time?
Subconsciously, probably not consciously. I wouldn't think, but we were, not at that top table.
Yeah.
But that top table wasn't like this big boardroom that was meeting all the time. The business was at that point was very fleet of foot. It was decisions being made, in regions rather than in.
But I think that's fair to say, not necessarily the size of the top table, but the dominance of men at the top table. That's probably representative of most business in the industry.
But how it was for women back then as well, working in the industry. We've all heard the stories about the boys' club. We've all heard some of the behaviours that were more than questionable.
You mean the President's Club and so on?
Certain
industry awards whereby
Absolutely.
I can absolutely argue that there is an element of, should we say, traditional thinking in the way that those awards are put on. There are some people that have boycotted awards very recently.
Including ourselves.
Including
As a
ourselves.
consequence of the way that those things are orchestrated.
Yeah.
So, what does that say for progress? Not
Yeah,
much.
well, and I guess that's the question.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the progress that has been made and the progress that is yet to be made?
So I think the difference is what Russ has just characterised, which is maybe 15 or 20 years ago, almost kind of there was almost an accidental attitude which didn't think about equality at board level between men and women. What's definitely changed in the last 10 years in particular is an absolute awareness and action around trying to change that.
Yeah.
Now, we can argue and debate all day long whether that's contrived, whether that's genuine and authentic or not, but I think we'd all agree the fact that we're talking about it now, the fact that you guys exist as we're, means that there is an absolute emphasis now on trying to make sure and to advance and promote equality, not just an agency. I don't think there's any issue in terms of equality in agency because there's lots of women in agency, and my experience of women in estate agency as a sector is that women are better estate agents than men. But at the top level, we still have to keep asking the question, even though it's got better, why is it not more equal? I mean, look, and what is the answer to that question?
Well, I actually want to specifically ask Russell this question because in your current role as a recruiter, that must form a part of a conversation with a lot of people who are hiring right now. So we shared the data at the conference that at entry level, 52% of women, or 52% of entry level roles are female.
Yeah.
And at board level, 32% are female.
Yes.
And I guess the question is, whenever, from your perspective in recruitment, what can businesses do to improve that? What can businesses do to attract more women into the industry and progress through senior levels? And what are the blockers to that happening today?
Lots of questions in one very, and I was going to reference the statistic as which was quite alarming when you saw the 52% and changing to 38%. We don't have any employers giving us information that would say we're conscious about what women's needs may be, a family need, or a man's need might be in relation to family. Because the most common conversation I've had is when I get to a point of I'm having children or I want to take a career break, and that's come up on our podcast time and time again. Nobody that I've spoke to in recruiting in a senior position has referenced that as being something they are aware of, that they want to be aware of, they want to deal with in how to support people on that journey.
And look, let's be clear. It is very important we get the right person for the role.
Yeah, of course
that's way more important than anything. Nobody wants tokenism, but equally,
I find the most recent senior hire that we're advertising for at the moment, which is as we're in prime central London almost here, is a senior prime central London role being recruited for by a senior female leader, being very aware of the predecessor on why they're changing their role, and they literally just want the best person for that job.
Of course.
And they will, they have recognised that they need to have some flexibility. So I'm not evidencing in recruitment a bias on
Yeah.
we
one
want to
way or
nail.
the other.
We want anybody else pale and stale. He's got a lovely tan. He's being pale. He's just been away.
Too much time on Mauritius.
Yeah, that's it. And I don't see in the recruitment world what I see on the stage at Women in Estate Agency.
Right.
I'm just not.
But the statistics
not seeing
speak
it.
for themselves, don't they? And it's...
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, here we
I
go.
know it's your
Here we
podcast.
go.
No, but I'm intrigued now. So do you think does anyone think that the answer is positive discrimination? In other words, only females may apply for this job in a recruitment ad. Do we think that's the answer?
Absolutely not.
No.
I absolutely do not. And I hire people all the time.
Yes.
So I'm always on the lookout for the best person for any individual role. However, what I do quite often say to a recruiter, depending on the specific role, is I want at least a fair representation of CVs that gives me, so don't just give me 10 CVs that are men.
Yeah.
Give me a cross-section, and I want you to look harder to find a cross-section of female representation in that to choose the best person for the job.
But
I
isn't
think
there-
Heather Street's talk
Yes.
last year around their recruitment
Anonymisation.
selection,
Yeah.
anonymisation is absolutely fantastic.
And it
Yes.
absolutely
And that's where-
shines through from them, doesn't it, in terms of their culture and what they've built with
Yeah.
that team. And I think, anyone listening could have shine a spotlight on what Heather's doing over at Street in terms of how to build a real thriving culture and get that team right.
So if we don't think, I think what we're saying is we don't think there's a glass ceiling as such. We don't think there's any boards in Britain, in estate agency or in lenders, brokers or conveyancers saying, I don't want to hire a woman. We don't think that's...
I'm not sure that's actually factually
Yeah, I
correct
don't know
either.
whether I agree
That's
with that.
different to the question you asked.
Yeah, no, but I'm expanding. So
Okay.
my next kind of comment then is that isn't this then about not positive discrimination, not thinking about glass ceilings, but it's encouraging more women to want to apply and be promoted and move through that recruitment
There's
process?
definitely a piece around that. And you know, a lot of what we focus
That's
on
what
at
we're about.
WEA is about empowering, training, mentoring, guiding, giving our members the confidence to go, do you know what? Yeah, I can do that. V talks about her own
role
story.
modelling.
No, that's exactly it. So what I get from you guys and from the conference is I guess two words, right? You're looking at the audience, all of the things you do. We've got Claire Hughes here at the background, very inspirational in terms of what you can do. The two words are, you can.
Yeah.
That's what you're basically saying. to your
Absolutely,
audience.
yeah.
You can.
And it's wider than that because it's also understand your worth, knowing your worth,
Yeah.
knowing your value,
Yeah.
and putting yourself forward, taking control of things that within your control, which is I'm going to do the work, I'm going to do the prep, I'll put myself in the best position to be successful in that job or that promotion or that particular role, but then put yourself forward for doing it.
Believe in yourself,
Exactly.
yeah.
And value your worth, because the other thing that we've seen, and I don't know whether you see this much from a recruitment point of view, we don't advertise the salary. And then if it's a role that's given to a woman, then the salary is slightly less than if it was for a man. And partly because
Yes, that happens.
absolutely,
That
it
happens all the time.
And partly because women don't challenge it, because we don't, in some cases, value our worth, and men are, typically speaking, more happy to have the difficult conversation around a salary.
I
So
haven't-
you don't see
I
that?
haven't seen that. No.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Well,
Maybe
and
we're just dealing with some different.
We've
definitely
definitely
experienced
experienced it, yeah.
But I just look at the roles that at the senior levels. That's mainly where I will spend
Yes,
my
your
time.
time.
That's the salary. That's
Yeah.
the role. That's the person that we want.
Yeah.
And of course, we only recruit. All of our clients only recruit within sector.
Yeah.
So these are usually people that are moving
Yeah.
within the same sector, and the salary is the salary.
And maybe that happens less so at a senior role than it does throughout the.
Yeah.
I'm going to sort of widen that question a little bit now, and not just necessarily about women, but about the estate agency sector per se. You both spend a lot of time in the industry, and Russell, you have used quite a lot of choice words to describe your feelings about the industry, and not necessarily in a positive light.
You're going to remind me of something.
You said it's shit.
Yep.
Yeah. That's one of them, and we were going to try and refrain from swearing on this podcast.
Yeah,
so
but we've broken that recording too.
But that was a quote from Quirk. So I'd like to delve into a little bit about that and explain why you feel the way you do about the sector and what changes do you think need to happen.
So when I characterise the sector, the industry as being, let's say, below par, I should say.
Yeah, I like that.
It's because I've seen the comparison. So I've made it my business to go particularly to the US and see how agents operate there and how they deal with clients, how they are seen and perceived by the public, how their performance looks, what they do when it comes to lead gather and lead nurture, and above all, what they earn. And many of those things, by the way, are completely linked.
Yeah, of course they are.
So I speak to a lot of agents. I see an awful lot of agents on social media. And let me characterise what I think, not all, but this is a typical estate agent in Britain, whether they are male or female, whatever. They've been in the industry for 10, 12, 15 years. They've got to manager level. They think they've got 15 years experience in the industry. Effectively, what they might have is 1 year repeated 15 times. They think they're now the oracle. They can't be taught anything. They don't need training. They don't need licensing. They're not bothered about compliance. They are the nuts. That is the problem. And then when it comes to things like compliance, customer care, and just what I would call the basic, and I'm old enough to remember old school estate agency, hot boxes, send outs, ring outs, all that kind of thing. The estate agency industry has lost all that completely. We've become a sector completely reliant on tech and Rightmove. Completely reliant. Rightmove, great as it is as a business, 75% margin on revenue. I mean, look, all hail Rightmove, right? But for estate agents, it's the worst thing that's ever happened. It's made all of you lazy and crap, frankly, because all you're relying on now is take some pictures, go back to the office, load them up, write a description, which you might now use ChatGPT for, by the way, because you're that lazy. Then it goes to Rightmove. Then you wait for.
Is that lazy or efficient?
No, I think it's lazy.
Okay.
It's lazy.
Well, it depends if you just copy and paste out of ChatGPT.
And I've read some of them, right? And you think, no, the context is completely wrong. But anyway, and then you get a load of inquiries. 25%, the statistics show, agents ignore. They ignore 25% of those Rightmove inquiries that come as a consequence of that listing, and then they arrange the viewing with the vendor doing the viewing, not themselves. Maybe not in London, but outside of London that happens. And then they wonder why the client, the customer, the public don't perceive that there's great value being given.
Yeah, what am I getting for my money?
Yeah, so that's why we're crap. The other reason we're crap is, and I've said this on other podcasts actually, and I'm sure I've definitely said it in my own right on LinkedIn, our ability, I sent you something this morning actually, did you see it?
I haven't watched it yet, but I've seen you send me it,
My absolute view on
Marketing.
Estate agency. On Chris Watkins' sofa, I used the term oxymoron and very playfully said, isn't it funny that the word moron is contained within the oxymoron word? I think with present company, absolutely accepted.
Thank you, Russell.
The marketing in estate agency, it almost doesn't exist. And when I talk about, I don't mean Rightmove and Zoot, but I mean, and putting stuff in the window and a pie chart that says, we're agent A, we've got 9% market share and all that rubbish. I mean, how you actually market and build your brand to potential sellers. It doesn't exist.
Because there's not a focus on it.
You're good at it, but most aren't.
Most agents, we know that over 90% of agents are doing marketing in-house. Fine, yeah?
When you say doing marketing.
Doing some marketing in-house.
Something that they think is
But
marketing.
over 50% of those I've just got somebody else within the business doing a bit of
I think
marketing.
marketing is
So
a bit
it's,
of
just stick a few bits on Facebook and we're golden.
It's whether it's recruitment or marketing. Agents
Afterthought.
do often, try and do it all themselves rather than outsource or bring an expert in. Me and Russell have this conversation all the time of self-employed versus employed. Russell's a big champion of the self-employed. I think self-employed's got a great place. I work with, know some incredible estate agents who are doing some wonderful things, getting amazing prices for vendors, getting people moved, getting them to where they want to get to, and then reinvesting that in marketing. Fundamentally, the fee war that is chasing prices down and fees down and down and down is getting harder and harder and harder for an estate agent to pay
To earn
to
an honest
people
living
properly.
for putting the effort in.
That's also because marketing is supposed to be about brand building, and also this big thing, differentiation.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't differentiate, why the hell should you be able to charge more than the idiot up the road? that
But
doesn't
I'm saying there are people who are.
But half of them don't know what differentiation means. Like, what is it that makes me different? We're all doing the same thing, right? Selling and letting
So that's why I think
properties.
the industry is a bit crap. I mean, does anyone really disagree with my characterisation?
So I, as you would imagine, I do have a view on it. And I think in a lot of cases, you're absolutely right. I think that for me, my observation is the range and the variance across the industry of the 20,000 estate agents that we have is so vast. And the bar is low in a lot of cases. And therefore, because of that variance, it's harder and harder for those who are at the top of their game, who want to do a brilliant job, who want to do and invest in great marketing for the customers, but also want to earn an honest living, given that they don't get paid until 6 or 9 months after they've listed the property and they've done all the work at that point. It's become harder and harder, for sure.
It is a question of investment, for sure. And most
Massively.
agents want to see a result, like they do from a valuation that they do on Monday. They want to see it come on the market by Friday. If it doesn't, they bin it. So we are a very impatient industry, and particularly when it comes to marketing. You know, investing in brand building, customer acquisition, and all of the holistic stuff that you need to do really as a brand. Most people don't want to do that because it involves thousands of pounds, and as you say, you don't get the money back for ages.
Yeah.
Old habits die hard. So we got off the tube at Ealing Broadway, had a little walk around there, and then we've just walked up Turnham Green Road. I'm not sure how many estate agents are on here, but we've just walked past probably 12, 15. I could pretty
Says it all,
much
doesn't
tell
it?
you who, as a vendor, I would choose just by looking through
the shop
those
window.
windows if
Yeah.
you walk through today.
Fine and country look pretty good, I thought.
I was going to name names, but there is there's window displays that are cracked. There's window displays with flies in the windows.
Yeah.
There's people just staring out of the
Yeah.
windows. Then you come along a bit further, and there is a pristine office on a corner,
Yeah.
looking like a statement, and the people in there looking ready.
So
to
what
work.
is the answer? I guess the question is, what is the answer? How do we improve standards? How do we compete with or compare ourselves in a much better way against businesses in America, realtors in America, Australia, other geographies?
Buy a ticket, jump on a flight, go and have a look. No, I'm serious.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant go and trade there.
Okay, could be an option.
If you can, you know, and look, I'm lucky enough to have done that. You know, when I was part of Keller Williams, I was invited to the EXP conference last year, and the value is in talking to those agents in queues.
Oh, where its names it keeps dropping.
But that's the only opportunity you get. Or, you know, whether it be through Fine and Country, the Guild, whoever, try and find some kind of associates in Australia or the US. And I know it sounds like a big thing to do, but spend a week in the US talking to other agents. It will blow your mind. It will open your mind.
Yeah.
And it is around back to the commission only or basics and the salary piece. And I'll drop a name now. So Tom Ferry came and spoke at a conference we had. So, you know, Tom's very well known in the US, big on podcasts. And before we went on, he said, I just want to ask a couple of questions. He had all these riders with him. He had a guy following him around social media. He had a list of riders that he insisted on. The one thing he asked, he said, what do these people all earn? And there was probably 400 people on a 2-day conference. The questions he earned was, have they paid to be here? No. And what do they earn? They're on 18k basics up to 40k basics up to 80k basics. He said, well, I'll just tell you the one thing I would do tomorrow is I'd get rid of all their basics.
Make it commission.
He said, I can tell you, I could be on here and give you the best talk ever.
Yeah.
He
But
said,
the one
That's the
key
drive.
factor is going
take
to be
away. Don't make them it wasn't necessarily self-employed or 0-hour contracts. It was take away from offices.
Yeah.
Pay them a bigger chunk of the commission. Give them more.
But the commission
skin in the
itself
game.
needs to be bigger to start with.
Yeah,
needs
that's
to
a
be
big
Therein
job.
is a challenge.
It does, but I think
I haven't been out there to see it, but that was his.
Yeah, but
his
the
take.
other suggestion I'd have, though, is I think there's a predominance in UK estate agency where agents talk about fee. They wait for the vendor to ask about fee, or they offer it as basically the primary part of a conversation.
Yeah.
You've got to get away from that, right? Because otherwise it's just a race to the bottom. It's just going to be the person that gets the misty is the one that was the cheapest fee. And that's so demeaning.
Or overvalued by the most amount.
Yeah, or both. Yeah, demeaning, degrading. What about having a conversation in the lounge, which is much more about, I don't know, performance, history, success in that street, local knowledge, expertise, community involvement, all that stuff. Turn the conversation around. And okay, you've got to talk
And
about
talk about your customer, talk about your
are you
audience,
going?
rather than just going in and talking about yourself.
Have a bit of, dare I think you have a bit of intelligence in
Yeah.
information like that.
Data. Use
If
data.
someone says to you, right, okay, well, I've had 5 agents around, you're number 6. I've got it down to 0.5% so far. Can you beat it?
Yeah.
The answer to that question should be, all right, so you're really, really financially motivated by this transaction. Yeah, I really am. Okay, let's walk you through that in terms of the outcome, because what
Yeah.
that's about is how much you price at, how much is
Yeah.
achieved,
Yep.
then what you pay in fee, ultimately what you're interested in, Mrs. Smith, Mr.
Yeah,
Jones,
yeah, yeah.
whatever, is the outcome.
Well, if you just think about the whole thing, isn't it? Same,
but
same with
seriously.
recruitment. I screwed you down on fee.
I don't want to sound like
You think you're going to get the good people?
Yeah, exactly.
Trainer, but at the end of the day, how many agents can honestly say, "Yeah, I have that conversation all the time"? 1%, 2%?
Yeah.
Because normally it's, oh right, okay.
Yeah.
I speak to my manager, see if I
Yeah.
can do it for 0.45.
Yeah.
No wonder.
But it's all around
Well,
training, isn't it? It's all
If
around
it was
training.
fee, Purple Bricks would be the #1 agent in the UK.
Well, they are on market share, but that's the business that's just sold for a quid.
Unsold.
Yeah.
Zero. You can sell for nothing.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but what do I say? Turnover is vanity,
Profit
is reality.
sanity. Yes.
So, gents, I can see that you've got a little bit like, they've been really easy on us today. I feel like that's what you're thinking. I think you thought, they're going to be kind of
Did you want us
tricky
to be
on us.
combative then, Kirsty?
Not combative, but I just wanted to turn the spotlight the other way, whereas at the minute we've given you all your favourite topics to talk about. But actually, what happens on your pod is that you get to shine the spotlight on your guests. Of course you do. You ask them some really personal stories. You get some incredible content out of your guests. But actually, you're very welcome.
I'm serious.
But actually, I'm interested.
But often
This will be.
That's
I think
okay.
we were saying this on the tube, and unintentionally, we follow a similar format. And this Monday, for example, we went places that we never
Yeah.
intended to go. We just asked the question.
Yeah.
Keep going, keep going.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
about,
no
you know, we
trails
want to
on
know
here.
about you two. We want to know about you guys, you know. And
Well,
you've
you know we're not an item.
really?
We're actually together.
Oh, I've missed the boat on this
We
one.
split up.
At least you've remained good friends, though, huh? You've talked about your childhood and the kind of challenges that you've faced and some of the things that you've been through throughout your career and personal life. I'm just kind of interested to understand a little bit more about how that's driven you to be.
Why I am the way I am.
Well, we haven't got time for that, Russell. But yeah, give me a little bit more about. I'm just trying to understand what the drive. Where's the fire in the belly come from?
The honest answer.
Yeah, the honest
This is
answer.
going to sound really bad, but I know we haven't got that much time left, but I need to apply some context. I'm going to say it first, and then I'm going to back it up with some context. I strive to be the opposite of my father. That sounds like a really horrible and weird thing to say.
No, it doesn't.
But my childhood was dominated by my mum and dad split up when I was 7. That was devastating. My dad, what a cliche, ran off with his secretary. My dad was an estate agent, had a secretary, ran off with her. My stepmother, lovely lady. Anyway, moving on from that. So that was obviously a pivotal moment in life. Obviously, I grew up in an estate agency family, so that was kind of always the North Star in terms of career. But my dad was, on the one hand, a very, very lovely guy. I mean, never shouted, not violent. He was a great guy. But he was incredibly weak as a businessman. People used to take advantage of him all of the time. All of the time. In deals, selling businesses as an estate agent, he couldn't hold his own when it came to negotiating on fees or selling a car. I've just bought back, by the way, a number plate, which is a beautiful number plate that he had on a car in 1980 that he sold and he immediately regretted, but he didn't have the balls to say to the guy that bought the car, the number plate doesn't go with it. The guy said, I want the car with the plate. He just went, yeah, I've just found that number plate. 40 years later, bought it back because it was so important. Anyway, that's the sort of guy I was. So because my dad was so, and I know weak sounds like a cruel word, but because he was so easily had over, I think that's why I'm the complete antithesis of that, and probably why I'm seen as this kind of punchy pantomime villain type, because I can't stand almost to relive that, standing there when I was 10, 15, 16 years old, when my dad went from estate agency then to cars. I mean, honestly, watching him negotiating a car deal, I would just gave the farm away. He just, the bloke said, see what, give us 25% off, then he'd go,
Will you take your dad?
Yeah. Even at 15.
That makes such sense.
What are you doing? You know, I found it humiliating, frankly.
It's interesting, even at such a young age, that you could see that happening, and it's clearly had an impact on
And
you.
I wanted at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old to say to my father, which I could never do because he was my father, "Man, stand up for yourself." And he never did. Never did in relationships, never did in business. And I just can't be doing that. So I think I'm probably, dare I venture, I'm probably over the top sometimes. Ask my wife and my kids when we go on holiday and there's a bit of a problem and they say, "Dad, don't." I go, "No."
Yeah.
I was going to ask, how has that impacted how you are as a dad?
It won't surprise anybody to learn that I don't tend to take any shit from anybody, even in circumstances where I could walk away, because I see it as being very principled. And I think, and I don't want to get all political, we definitely haven't got time for that, but I think we live in a world that is losing standards rapidly. I think we are becoming a country in particular that is broken. And I think a lot of it is lack of standards, lack of discipline, lack of social awareness, lack of respect for fellow people. And so when I see something like someone on the train sitting in front of me watching YouTube or listening to a rap video at full volume, guess what? I say,
You're going to say something.
"Mate, do you mind turning that down? Otherwise I'm going to turn mine on." And it becomes almost aggressive and antagonistic. And even now I can feel the heckles on the back of my neck.
Or giving the sunbed
Standard.
the sunbed attendant in Mauritius a little coaching session.
I did give him some stick. Because, in Mauritius, lying there with a book, on my own, my kids are on the beach, my wife's in the room, and I thought, this is bliss, I'm actually going to relax. And I've ordered my Coke Zero and 2 more towels, please. Half an hour later, looking, thinking, where's the tiller?
You can picture it, just
I
hanging.
got up and I went looking for it.
Oh my.
This is terrible. Not aggressive, I don't want to hit him or anything, but I wanted to educate him and say, "Mate, you're the towel guy, right?" He went, "Yeah." I said, "Where's my towel?"
Do towels well. Do towels well.
I said,
Let me talk to you about towel customer
That's
service.
what you do, right? I mean, yeah. And I felt, I didn't say to him, "You had one job," but it is my inference. And I'm sorry, as if it was no big deal. But it, to me, is a big deal. And look, mad as I am, my dad would have sat there with no towels for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's me.
Do you know, and it's interesting because I think understanding that context and that background helps for other people to understand who you are as an individual. And we've had this conversation before, so thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go to something slightly different, and I'm going to go to you, Russell, on this one, which is you've obviously spent a large chunk of your career and very successfully in a state agency, and both of you have actually gone through a period of metamorphosis and later in life, and you've changed completely your careers, not totally disassociated with the state agency, of course, either of you, but you've had a massive shift in your journey.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about why and how you found that.
Why? It was driven by my previous boss, who probably won't realise that I went on a course.
Not by sacking you?
No. It is that I was put on a course, which was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah. COVID.
And the gentleman we were talking about earlier, Andrew Ben, had talked to me about this, and I thought, I don't need training. I was very much, I don't need training. I don't need this. I need to deliver training, but I don't need any training.
Interesting.
I was invested in. I went on this course. I went for 3 days in London, and that really did shift my paradigm and my mindset. It was a absolute pivotal moment in my life and my career and my whole outlook. And
what was it about that shifted so much?
That what other people want to do to you, they will do.
That's how you responded and reacted.
And you cannot, however much you think you can, you cannot change them.
Yeah.
You just
100%.
cannot change them. And it took a long time for me to realise that. So the company I was working with was going for a change that I'd been a big part of. I'd led, I'd promoted the structure they were going to move to. We'd done lots of offsites. And I actually sat there when it was all landed and different people had got into different positions, and no positions that I wanted, not a position I went for. And I just secured the position I was going to have, just got delivery of my new car, got this whole plan, was all going to come through. And I thought, I just don't want to be part of it. I actually looked around and thought, do you know what? This just isn't where I want to spend my next 10 years. I've been there for 33 years.
Yeah.
I'd had 33 amazing years. I wouldn't change any of them. And I felt there was a world outside that I needed to go and explore. And I left with nothing. Me and my wife agreed that we'd both been 50 that year. So a lot of people say, oh, it's your 50th year, it's a pivotal moment. No, the number was irrelevant. But we said, right, we're going to have this 50th year. We're going to have the most amazing year, do all the things we want to do. And then I'm going to make a change. And I had a couple of options. I didn't know what I was going to do. And the whole piece for me was, if I invest as much time in myself as I have been doing for that business, I cannot fail. And it took me a long time to realise that my future is in my hands and I can't have it in someone else's hands. And I could still be there now. I'm sure I could. I'd agreed the deal. It was on my way. And I just thought, I just don't fancy this.
I absolutely love that.
this.
Yeah. And I love and you know what's almost in some ways a little bit sad, but it's not, because you eventually did recognise it. It took you
never
till
too
you
late,
were
is
50,
it?
right?
It took to 47.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah,
It
of course it
absolutely
is.
But it's not just the changing of the career actually that really resonates with me. It's the acknowledgement of that you are in complete control of your life and your destiny.
That
Sadly,
took me
people
so
don't
long.
realise that. Sometimes not at all, and sometimes till later on in life. And imagine the power of that if we acknowledged it early on.
I went on to become a facilitator of that program and be able to train it and coach it. And I practice habits 1, 2, 3, and 7 very well. I'm not very good at 4, 5, and 6. They're difficult. I can't master them, but I'll keep working on that.
Amazing.
But within it, the circle of influence, the circle of concern. Stop worrying about things. And so much we talk about this in the world of social media and looking at Instagram versus reality and all of that. Control the controllables. I read on my holiday recently, prompted by I think it was
Vicky, was it?
Yeah.
that Let Them. So I read Let Them.
Yeah, the Mel Robbins one.
It's incredible,
I was on holiday
isn't it?
with my next door neighbour. She said, "What?" I said, "Just read." She said, "I've got this going on, this going." I said, "Read that." She goes, "Oh my God, Russell!" And it's
Game
fantastic.
changer.
And Let Them just comes back to circle of influence, circle of concern,
perception
and
of risk as
every
well.
single business book
Yeah.
I've read, and every habits life book I've read, all goes back to the fountain of 7 Habits. So it wasn't when I was 50, but probably 45, and then I started trying to influence the things I'd learned.
Yeah.
And I realised that not everybody else was on the same page, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But the perception of risk, I think, is something that is so relative. So many people think that, risk is not something that's worth taking the risk on. I just have a very, very different view that actually the consequence of risk, even if it goes wrong, is most of the time nowhere near as bad as you think it's going to be.
Absolutely.
Risk is a thing that holds a lot of people back from starting their own businesses.
Yeah, of course it is.
Fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Back you.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, back you. And I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't done that. I still talk to lots of people that are within that business, and they're doing well and they're happy, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've met some just incredible people through that journey and done some incredible things. You're standing on stage doing your conferences.
Yeah.
We started our conference. First time I remember at Sopwell House, standing up in front of 400 people. I'm like, oh my God, they're all applauding you. And you're like, wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, because I did not know that, so that's good
it's
to know.
incredible.
So it was just my choice. And then the journey to finish that point. This has been incredible, because I've talked to a couple of people who have come out of what might be perceived as corporates. Spice Heart's a fiercely independent business, but it has to have corporate structures, doesn't it? Like any business over, of course, there'll be 10 offices. I was just even some over 4 or 5. But I took a decision to go and see everything, because when you talk about, we didn't go to that awards, we didn't go to any awards. The first time I went to EA Masters, I was like,
Really?
wow, because we were running our EA Masters.
In a bubble.
I then went to, I went to, if someone wanted to interview me, or talk to me when I announced my leaving, I went to see everybody because I thought I'm just going to go and
Yes,
see everything.
network, yeah.
I'm going to just get
Why
as
not?
much information. I was very clear to everyone saying, I think this is what I'm going to do. People is where I've always been. I love people. And when you get to a certain point in a business, you're running a P&L, but you're managing people.
Of course you are, yeah.
So, but I just went and saw everyone and just had a deep dive into the wonderful world that is the property sector, because despite all of our frustrations, there are some wonderful people within it.
Absolutely.
And there's some people doing some
There's lots of
amazing
incredible
things.
things, despite
Good
the
things.
the negative quirk in the corner. But yeah, there is lots of incredible people and amazing things that happen in our sector for sure. It's a special place.
So the 6 years I've been with Josh has been fantastic. Never a dull moment.
I can imagine.
I never look back. I've looked sideways sometimes. Although he's half the man he was.
He is.
He is.
Indeed.
So he's been incredibly supportive. He's delivered on every promise, and we now help so many people try and find that next happiness, which is always in the same industry. But just they need to play on a different stage.
Making a big difference.
Definitely. Phenomenal.
Boys, we could talk to you for another hour, and you've already made us run over, which we were adamant that we were going to do today.
We always do.
Yeah, honestly, we'll have you back for another episode. We'd love to have you back if you would like to come
Thank you
back
for having
again,
us.
and we'll keep the conversation
You're not
going.
done quite
Just
yet.
yeah.
Okay.
So
You put on the clothes.
talk to us briefly, please, because we're way over time. Why you think the women in estate agency movement is so important in this sector?
I think you've already seen it, haven't you, in the last 3 years, from the first conference that I came to, the first Facebook group, the women that are rising up and leading the industry. I've said this on, I think after your podcast, Verona, it might have been, or after Lucy Noonan's, that men, you need to get sorted because you're being left behind here. We're seeing some powerhouses leading the industry, and the inspiration. I brought along a lady that I do some work with, some mentoring with, to last year's, and she said, I just feel an inner power from being there today.
You can't explain it until you've been there, can you?
No.
The feeling of it.
It's the one date that we look for.
It's in the diary.
But for us, it's about how we bring that magic throughout the whole entire year. And there's...
But also, I think it's a shame that it has to exist.
Of course.
And the fact that you have to
to
be
be.
there to extol the virtues and to raise profile and so on. But I guess the target surely is those that aren't there. Whether corporates or independents. Those that kind of just, ignore the existence of women in estate agencies.
Don't see the need.
Yeah, or they just kind of, they're just just apathetic towards it. They're the ones that need to come along and see it, understand it. And look, my experience, I've only been to 2. I didn't think I was announced the first one. I thought it was generally only women, but guess what? It's not. It's men too. It's not. If you don't mind me saying, and I'm kind of paraphrasing what some people might think. A load of bleeding heart liberals banging on about women's equality, right? It's much, much more sophisticated, much better than that. And it's not them and us. Despite Ben Macken on the stage last time, banging on about how poorly served, white middle-aged male. And apparently they're the most oppressed demographic in India. None of us really buy that. So I'm only saying because he's here. It's a conversation he and I have had. But it's not them and us. It's very much about raising standards, raising profile, and I guess asking questions as to how do we make this a bit better? So that you do a great job, Jen.
You also, that's why leaders, I think, of businesses need to go there to hear those stories. They're being told by people who do not feel they could have told them in their own company to their line manager.
It's a safe space.
And that's exactly why the Facebook group is so important, because our members share so many things, and they say, I can't have this conversation at work.
Even if they do it anonymously.
And they can do it anonymously.
I looked after
It's powerful.
The second one, I think it was the mansplaining, and it was the whole stories of how people have been treated on their careers going up. And you have reflective moments. You think, I feel I maybe have fallen into that trap and
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
do things
for sure.
differently.
And can I just say on another podcast, which is called The Two Russells, which is a really
Don't worry, we'll edit that bit out.
we actually have covered several women and their journeys and their challenges. And look, I've got to say, without exception, no wonder women are better at estate agency than men, because they've often more to cope with. I mean, seriously, some of the stories that we found, that you found on the stage at Women in Estate Agency, are absolutely
Incredible.
Yeah.
so, look, 45, I'm going to get to 45 minutes, so that it's definitely his.
I am almost.
Yeah,
We're
we've
nearly
got
there.
one
One
final
question. I'm
for
almost.
each of you.
I'm almost scared to ask it.
Yeah, me too.
Who would you like to see in future episodes of the Weir Pod on this sofa telling their story?
You get one each.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to agree.
Alison Platt.
Great one. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Warts and all, what happened,
That's
what
a
went
great
wrong,
one.
what was misunderstood, and to make an account of herself, I guess. She had one of the biggest jobs in estate agency. She had a really hard time.
Yep.
Probably was there at the wrong time. Made mistakes, it seems, in terms of believing that estate agency was a retail business, which it definitely isn't. It's not the same as picking up a kettle from Curry's, is it?
I guess that's the question
I think
around
she'd be
Alison is, was it a flawed strategy or a fall guy?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess
Or too early.
that's the question that I would love to. I think it's a really
Yeah,
good call.
really good shout.
So we will do our best.
Sound,
Yeah.
and then-
sound to number 2.
Sound?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can't have two.
I'd
One.
go with Helen because having taken over and running the largest
I thought
agency
that's
business
one of
in,
the
the,
best.
in the country,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
has to be.
Yeah. Helen,
and-
if you're
and
listening, we'd like you on.
Her board and the senior leadership team, I think, is the balance has shifted there of power as well. With
Yeah, she's definitely
Holly
making
on the senior
changes.
leadership team and
Yeah.
Mary Beaton and so on. So I think that would be for me.
And let's not forget also Liz Truss, the great
Yeah,
we
I
just had.
think she might be washing her hair that day.
He always wants more. It's only like one.
Just an icon that wasn't allowed to happen.
Yeah. What about getting around the two Russells then, if you think?
Yeah.
I didn't think it the other day, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Well, guys, as ever, not a dull second, never mind minute. Thank you so much for being your true, authentic selves, and also sharing some of your stories and your background.
Behind the curtain a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
And guys, do watch this and future episodes. It's the second best watch.
We can't help it. So, thank you
Thanks,
so much.
guys. Thank you. Thank you.